Walter Cronkite called it a disaster for America. It turned out to be actually a great victory for American arms. And you always had that sort of thing going on. But I think there was at least some attempt to give hard news as opposed to just opinion all the time. Now I think hard news has been completely wiped off the block, and what we get is 24/7 of nothing but opinion.
Well, since the last time we talked, they've had John Lewis's funeral. John Lewis is a guy that I never really liked. He never really did anything but talk about him being beaten in the head and things like that, and his nonviolent crap. He got voted. People forget that he was replaced as the chairman of SNCC, Student Nonviolent, whatever they call it, Student Nonviolent something conference. But he got replaced as the chairman of SNCC by Stokely Carmichael. People forget that. John Lewis was supporting Hillary Clinton against Barack Obama. And his constituents said, if you support Hillary Clinton, we're going to vote you out. That's the only reason he changed his mind.
Yeah.
Okay. So Frank, we got those two things. Let's throw in the third one. He didn't go to the inauguration. I remember he said, Hillary Clinton's my president. And I mean, how stupid is that? If that's not a stupid son of a gun, I don't know what is. What bill is Hillary going to sign? See, that's stupid these people were who were in the civil rights movement. And I hate to say that, but they were fucking stupid. It may feel good. It may feel good to grandstand, but how can you cut a deal for your constituents, for your state, for your concerns, if you boycotting the damn a president? Talking about Hillary Clinton, your president.
Well, more than that, with that type of attitude, unfortunately, nothing ever gets done. Everyone goes hard into their corners. We go back to the days of the 1980s when Ronald Reagan, a conservative Republican, would meet on a Friday night with Tip O'Neill, Speaker of the House at the time from Massachusetts, a liberal Democrat. And over a few drinks on a Friday night, frankly, they would come up with a lot of solutions which actually worked really, really well. This nonsense that party over country that has taken over the United States at this point really is bad for the country. It's bad for the citizens of this country.
It's always been.
For example, what the Democrats are doing right now with the stimulus discussion.
Mm-hmm.
And when they have tried to throw in every pet project of the Democrat Party, including things like the Green New Deal and all that stuff, standing in the way of getting a compromise on the stimulus bill, it really is an example of party over country. Now, both parties do it to a significant extent, but the Democrats do it far, far more than the Republicans, and it's frankly fairly despicable.
Well, my point being about all of these people, all they're doing, all you see the Democrat Party doing now, Frank, is emulating Black Americans and Black elected officials. I remember when Nixon was elected, the unions, of course, did not side with Dirty Dick, Tricky Dick. But after he was elected president, George Meany, Walter Reuther, all those guys sat down with the president and made up. Except for Black folks. We're just going to wait. We're not going to talk to the president. How stupid is that? That's what I'm talking about. Stupid. These Black Americans, and I hate to say this, are the most politically unsophisticated people in this country. They continue to be. And a lot of it has to do with that Negro church mentality. And I say Negro church because the Negro church, the Black church, is a whole lot different than white churches. It is backwards. It is rooted in superstition. It is rooted in ignorance. That's what it comes from. Because remember this, folks, for those of you who don't know this, I'm going to give you a little education. The slave that was picked to be the preacher by the plantation owner and keep the slaves calm, he was told what to read on Sunday morning. Because he could read. So he was told what to say, I should say, on Sunday morning. He wasn't reading the damn thing. He was a little illiterate. It was against the law to teach slaves to read and write. So the Negro pastor was only told what was in the Bible by his white master. And his white master said, a slave's role is to obey his master, not master, master. And that's, Frank, we still have that mentality going on today. So the Democrat Party is just emulating the stupidity and the tactics of black politicians who are overwhelmingly what? Democrat.
Let me give you an interesting example of how that kind of works in practice, but on a smaller scale. When I was part of New York City government in a high appointed position, my areas of responsibility included some of the areas like the South Bronx and Harlem, which are Black American parts of the city.
Mm-hmm.
When I would talk to community leaders, they would ask for things like safer neighborhoods, more charter schools, more economic opportunities within their communities.
Mm-hmm.
Yet the Democrat Party, which completely and totally dominated the vote in those areas, would vote for no charter schools or less charter schools and less police protection, things that were diametrically opposed to the things that the community leaders themselves would ask for.
Right.
And I think there's always been a kind of war within, frankly, the black community between what the people want and what their leaders from the Democratic Party tell them that they have to vote for.
Let's go back. I want to correct something here. So-called leaders. Nobody elected.
That's correct.
No one elected Al Sharpton to be a spokesman for black people. No one asked Jesse Jackson.
It's interesting you say that, because I think there's no more salient example of racism than the white media depicting Al Sharpton as a, quote,
black
spokesman
leader
for the black
community.
Yeah. Which is a pretty lousy phrase to begin with. I think it's an insulting phrase.
It is insulting.
But when you make it doubly bad when you appoint a clown like Al Sharpton as being that so-called spokesman.
Yeah. And with his dissing and that, I listened to him speak. And let's talk about what's his name, John Lewis, for a minute. I have always detested John Lewis. Did I tell you this story? I know I probably told you before. I know I've told the listeners. I was in Washington, D.C. the week that they were voting on Obamacare. And the protesters were outside protesting Obamacare, and John Lewis claimed that he was spit on and he was called the N-word. Well, I'm walking with John, right? Because I'm going up to see Joe Wilson, the guy who claimed you lie during the inauguration, right? I mean, during the State of the Union speech that Obama made. And he was lying. Barack was lying. So I'm walking with John, and people are, Congressman Lewis, we love you, but we don't support Obamacare. We don't support Obamacare, sir. They were very respectful, very deferential. Now I am walking, and let me be clear, people, I'm a black man too. Me and John Lewis and Lewis's assistant, and they had one little aide from Wilson's office who was escorting me up to the chamber. So we get to the Hill, and John Lewis goes in and goes in the members section and does his thing, and all the blacks. If you're at the podium and you're facing out looking at the chamber, the blacks sit on the right hand side in the corner like little sheep. They're terrified. They're all in over their heads, and then they come back home with their chests all puffed out like they're the big deal, and they're totally terrified walking around the halls of Congress because they're in over their head. They don't know what the hell's going on. So that aside, I hear the next couple of days, I see Lewis on TV talking about he was called the N-word, he was spit on, and I'm going, well, that didn't happen when he was with me. So I called Andrew Breitbart. I said, hey, Drew, I was with Lewis walking up to the Hill, And I don't know how many times or when these incidents were supposed to have happened, but it did happen when I was with him. I said, and his staff all had cameras. They had their telephones out. They were filming everything. So somebody had to have seen this if it happened. And Andrew said, well, that's interesting. He said, you're right. Somebody must have seen it. He said, I'm going to offer $100,000 for someone to produce a video. Do you know no one ever produced a video?
I remember that. As a matter of fact.
That came out of my conversation.
You were the guy behind that. So that's interesting.
Yep. Came out of my conversation with John Lewis and with Breitbart.
Yeah. Yeah. But it is fascinating as we go forward that they continue, and I think this will continue straight through November, appointing people like Al Sharpton, a so-called spokesman of the Black community, which is, again, just an extraordinary insult.
It is an insult. But, the point that they had this woman on MSNBC named Dr. Harris. I think her name was Michelle Harris. Do you remember her? She used to come on Saturdays. Okay. Well, she used to come on Saturdays with right before Joy Reid. Okay. So Joy Reid, AM Joy AM is what they call her. Joy AM. My ex-wife used to say, you just watch her so you can get revved up for the week. And it was true. But I remember Al Sharpton calling her saying, welcome to the leadership. You're part of Black leadership now. And I'm thinking to myself, nobody elected either one of you. You're just commentators to be a leader of anything. But that's where Nancy Pelosi gets away with it. What Speaker of the House, what member of Congress would have the nerve to stand before television cameras on national TV and say to the American people, we know better what you need than you do. So you need to listen to us because we are going to take care of you. We're going to tell you what you need.
And we're not even going to tell you what's in the legislation we're considering until after it passes.
And if you want to know what's in the legislation, you have to vote for it first. How stupid is that? But you know who I fought for that kind of madness is these limp penis Republicans. Every last one of them is a limp penis guy. McCarthy, limp dick. The only ones that have a little fire is Jordan, Louis Gortmerth. Those guys have fire, but they can't carry the ball by themselves. Grassley has a little fire, but he's getting old.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting you bring that up because we've seen a history of that within the Republican Party. Let's go back to the very late 1970s, the run-up to the election of Ronald Reagan.
Okay.
The Republicans don't like to admit it now, but the Republican leadership as a whole was vehemently against the nomination of Ronald Reagan. They did not want Ronald Reagan to be the nominee to run for president for 1980. Reagan came somewhat outside of the Republican mainstream. He was a guy who did exactly what you're saying that the Republicans do. He didn't do what the Republicans always do, which is always back away from a fight. He took it to the Democrats. He said, your foreign policy is wrong. Your domestic policy is weak. We've got to move ahead. And he was disliked by most of the Republican leadership. Maybe now, of course, he's considered a saint within the Republican Party. I think there's a similar thing with Donald Trump. Going back, and I remember the conversations that you and I had, going back to 2015, early 2016. The Republican leadership despised Donald Trump. Donald Trump was
never
a bull in a
Trumpers.
China shop. They
Never
stand
Trumpers.
the idea of Donald Trump.
Hey.
Never Trumpers, and there's still a lot of them
Never
out there.
Trumpers.
That's right. And you still got some of them within the Republican
what's his
Party
name?
What's
his name?
Upset the apple cart.
What's his name? Crystal, the guy who used to be over at National Review.
Bill Kristol.
All of these guys, they hate Trump. They hate Black Republicans because we're not part. We tell, hey, you need to break that pie up, dude. It's time to break the pie up. They've been on a gravy train. What's his name? Karl Rove, all those guys, they've been on nothing but a gravy train. And Trump stepped in and shook all that stuff up.
And if you take what's happened in several states, let's take my home state of New York as an example.
Okay.
Just about 10, 12 years ago, the governor of New York was Republican. The majority leader of the state Senate was Republican, and every county executive outside of the city of New York was Republican. But something started to change. And you had guys like former Senator Alphonse D'Amato became the power behind the throne in the Republican Party.
Right.
And he saw the Republican Party as being a way of making a lot of money rather than getting anything done. So he cut a lot of deals where he would endorse people like Christy Gillibrand, the Democrat senator from New York, then the Democrat congresswoman from New York. And in return for, quite bluntly, a lot of dollars being passed around in thinly veiled campaign organizations and groups, which
right.
really were a money-making thing for D'Amato,
right.
He basically took the Republican Party out of the fight.
Mm-hmm.
I suspect you see that in many places around the country, and that's one of the key problems with the Republican Party.
Well, what are we going to do about this Kevin McCarthy guy? Kevin McCarthy has to be one of the weakest guys I've ever met. I mean, the guy, he doesn't get excited about anything. He just kind of, well, hey, dude, enough of that California cool. You need to get busy. We're engaged in combat here.
Yeah, the problem is there's a history of Democrat people, of Republican leadership in the Congress doing exactly that. Remember Paul Ryan?
Worst choice for speaker ever. This is a guy who said
we had those first 2 years of the of the Trump administration, where you had a Republican president, a Republican House, Republican Senate. So much could have been done.
Paul Ryan said, I don't support. Paul Ryan was very clear. At least you can give him that. He said, hey, I don't support Donald Trump, but I'm going to vote for him because he's the nominee. And when he became the president, Paul Ryan just dropped out. He dropped out.
Yeah.
And that's
now
okay.
You contrast that with the first 2 years of the Obama administration, where there was a Democrat president and a Democrat leadership in the Congress. They got a lot done. All of it bad for the country, of course, but they did get a lot done. And that's the difference between the Democrats operating and the Republicans operating.
But Frank, they could have gotten a lot more done that was bad for the country. But you had the egos. You had Nancy Pelosi and Reid, who did not want this young pup stealing all the thunder and being considered as the person in charge of the country. And I mean, I remember Nancy Pelosi sitting on TV besides Harry Reid, and she looked right into the camera and she said, we don't work for the president. We work with the president. And I'm thinking, what the hell is this all about? You don't work for the president. She sent a message.
Yeah.
And her message was, we'd rather go down in flames than to have our power subverted. And so she ended up.
By the way, I'm sorry, go on.
So she ended up losing anyway because Obama was popular with the people. He's still popular with the people. That stuff that he said last week about the LGBT this and the LGBT that, nobody gives a crap about no LGBT. LGBT and civil rights are not the same issue. And Barack Obama tried to make it that, didn't work. It's over, Barack. He doesn't understand that the nation has moved past him. In 3 years, the nation has just pushed all of his stuff aside. He is a dot in history and not a very big one.
One of the things I think that you can say is that Barack Obama, oddly enough, represented more the elite of the country. I mean, he tried to portray himself as a man of the people, but he represented really the elite, and that is a fact the media doesn't want to talk about very much at all.
Well, I mean, exactly. I used to tell people at VON, I said, Barack and I have more in common than you and Barack ever will. I said, all you and Barack have in common is the color of your skin. I said, Barack and I ran in the same social circles. So we knew each other. People don't get that. But again, it goes back to that black thing that, like, because we're all black, we're supposed to all be together and live together and have these things. You know what? John Lewis can kiss my black ass with that socialist bullshit. And that's all it was. You know, I mean, what is the son of what does the son of a sharecropper and me have in common? Let me say this: the color of our skin. That's it. John Lewis was trying to get into Troy University. See, I was trying to get into Michigan State, Michigan. I hadn't even heard of no Troy University. I mean, really?
Hey, let me ask you a question. As someone who's familiar with Michigan, do you think that Governor Whitmer is going to add or subtract from the ticket if she's one of the people who actually gets chosen as VP? I know that Biden said he was picking a black woman, but now it seems that that list
he didn't
is
say
expanding.
that. He didn't say he's picking a black woman. He said he's going to pick a woman.
On March 15th, after the debate, he did.
I thought he said he's going to pick a woman, which was a mistake.
I thought after. Yeah, I think putting yourself in any kind of a corner, I think, is a mistake. But so far, it seems there's not much that he has been able to say cogently anyway, which is why publications like the New York Times are saying, well, there's no need for a presidential debate. That's foolish. You don't need that.
So Biden, what day did you, excuse me, what day did you say that was that he said that?
March 15th. It was after the debate with Bernie Sanders. He said he was going to pick, I believe, a black woman as his running mate. And anyway.
Okay, I'm just looking it up.
Here we are.
I'm just looking it up because he can't do it. He can't do it. I'm going to tell you why. I think, here it is, Frank. Biden commits to something. It's a New York Times article. A woman is vice president, not a black woman.
Yeah, it was later modified, I think, to a
he
black
said,
woman. But,
he said, I commit that I will, in fact, appoint a woman to be vice president. There are a number of women qualified to be president tomorrow. Biden made his comment in response to a videotape question from a voter. Excuse me, posed first to Senator Bernie Sanders. So tomorrow, I'm going to have Liz Peek with me, and we're going to talk about why the vice president is dithering on selecting a VP. I don't know why he's doing
right now. I would say in first place among those that he's considering, probably Val Demings from Florida. I would suggest is probably in first place.
She doesn't have any experience. She doesn't have any executive experience.
No, not much at all. But
no, she has none.
I think that
she has none. She was a police chief.
Yeah, but I think she probably has the least negatives. But we'll see. I mean, I still think there's a question whether the Democrats are going to go through with the Joe Biden nomination, despite the fact that he has the votes. I mean, the guy has been a complete disaster so far. Once he becomes the official nominee, he does have to come up from the basement, and he will eventually have to talk to reporters. That could be kind of embarrassing for the Democratic Party.
It might be, and it might not be, Frank, but what we can certainly count on, I think, is that here is a man who's made these promises that he's going to have a woman as VP. And I think in America today, having a woman as run for president or vice president is not going to happen because the American women don't see a woman out there who's qualified to be president. I think that
one of the reasons why I think that he will probably stick with the women, frankly, is that one of the demographic groups he has to win, and that so far it looks like he's ahead with, is the white suburban females. And having a female VP might do very well with that demographic.
No. And I tell you why it's not going to do well. Because these white female suburbanites are looking for law and order. They're looking for someone to lead. They're looking for stability in their homes. They're looking for their husbands to have a stable job. They're looking for their children to have stable environments and not be out chasing drugs in the urban cities. People in this whole 3.5 years have had some epiphanies, and a lot of it has been because of Donald Trump and his approach to the urban issues. I mean, Trump, people don't want to admit it, but this guy has been honest about the neglect of urban cities, the neglect of citizens in urban cities. He says, why should your quality of life be determined by your zip code? I've said the same thing, the exact same thing. Here in Chicago, I live in a zip code that used to be a safe zip code. Oh, Frank, you know what I wanted to ask you before we go on, before you have to go. The big spike upticks, man, in terms of crime is on the Upper East Side in Manhattan, from 59th Street up to 89th Street.
Right. And it's up on the uptick for the same reason that Willie Sutton robbed banks. That's where the money is.
That's where the money is, baby. That's what I tell you. Is to come to Hyde Park. There's to come to Hyde Park. Then and this guy got killed 2 blocks from Obama's house. And Anita Alvarez, who was the state attorney at the time, she asked him, "Well, why did you kill this man?" They said, "Well, we came over here because this is where the money is."
Unbelievable. Hey, listen, it was great. I look forward to our next discussion.
All right, man. As always, bro.
Take care.
You too.
Feel good.
All right. Mr. Frank Venucio. He's just telling me you feel good because, folks, I thought I was coming down with the virus. Your boy was under the weather. I was just hanging on. My life was passing before my eyes. And I said to myself, Charles, you got to get a wife. You can't go out like this, boy, all by yourself. Sitting up in here, they find you 2-3 weeks later. Rigor mortis didn't sit in. Oh, man. Serious, though. That's exactly what I was thinking. You think about those things when the time comes. So, I'm going to take a quick break and talk a little bit about John Lewis when I come back, because this is a guy I really didn't have a lot of respect for. Sorry. Some people did. I just didn't. I thought he was a sham. I thought he was ridiculous. But hey, we'll be right back. Thanks again. Appreciate you.
Uno, dos, tres, cuatro. You see that black boy over there running scared? His old man in a bottle. He done quit his 9 to 5. He drink full time, and now he's living in a bottle. See that black boy over there running scared? His old man got a problem, and it's a bad one. He ain't done pawned off damn near everything. His old woman waiting for a bottle. And don't you think it's a crime when time after time listen to me. See that sister, sure was fine. Oh, she's finally taking wine from the bottle. She told me, oh man, ready to cry. He's doing time. Now she's hanging in the bottle. I seen her out there on the avenue.
Okay, welcome back. Welcome back to the Reality Check with Charles Butler. You know, so I'm listening to this clip with Joe Behar and John Lewis and Whoopi Goldberg and the whole View crew. And this is what he had to say about about President Trump. And I'm thinking to myself, are you stupid? He actually had the nerve to say Hillary Clinton is his president. Donald Trump would never be his president. Well, you weren't going to hear Hillary speak at the State of the Union, dude. He'd obviously had some real psychological issues from those beatings about the head, I think.
Well, I felt strongly during the inauguration, or the so-called inauguration, that I couldn't be at home with myself if I had to participate or be part of it. The movement taught us to withdraw from evil. And I never felt that his election was legitimate.
Yes, I'm with you on this.
Dr. King's daughter, though, Bernice, thinks her father would have met with Trump if he were alive. Do you agree with that?
Well, I knew her father very, very well.
Yes.
I met him when I was 18. I first heard of him when I was 15. And meeting him, working with him, and getting to know him, I think he would have took the same position that I took.
Really, he would not have met with him.
Do you agree with me? I said that Trump wouldn't have won if Dr. King were alive. Do you think that's true?
No, I agree with you.
You agree?
If Martin Luther King had been alive, no, Dr. King would have been able to lead us to a different place. And our country would be different.
Completely.
And the world community would be different.
Well, we still have hope that we'll get it.
Well, you have to be hopeful. You have to be optimistic. You know, I'm very hopeful, very optimistic. I got arrested 40 times.
This guy, he's lying. First of all, he's lying. Dr. King wouldn't have been stupid enough not to meet with the president of the United States because he needs his help. Down, you think that John Kennedy was the first president Martin Luther King met with? No, he wasn't. King met with Eisenhower. I got pictures. Nixon as vice president, Dwight Eisenhower as president, met with all the civil rights leaders when they put forth the Civil Rights Act of 57 and 60. The guy who killed those acts, gutted them so you couldn't enforce the law, was Lyndon Baines Johnson, who led the Southern Democrats. Democrats controlled all of the, let's be clear, Southern Democrats controlled all the chairmanships of the Democrats, of the Southern Democrats. Let me put it this way. Southern Democrats controlled all of the committees in the House and the Senate because they had the most seniority. So they were always putting down legislation that helped Black people. The first crack in that armor was the 57, for civil rights anyway, was 1957. Second crack in that armor was 1960. Well, Kennedy saw, as Johnson, they couldn't stop the bills from being passed. So they better get on board. They didn't want to be on the wrong side of history. But did they buy into it? Hell no. Hell no. John Lewis and his crap. Oh, I don't think the president. I don't think Dr. King would have met with the president. He wouldn't have gone to the. He certainly would have. Because he's an American. He always said, I'm an American. I'm an American citizen first. He didn't have this socialist agenda, even though he had a lot of socialists and communists around him. Let's be clear. Because those are the people who brought the money and supported him, the white socialists and communists. And if you supported civil rights of any type during that time, you were considered a communist. That's how Frank Sinatra got the title stuck on him that he was a commie because of the work he did against racial bigotry. And I'm just not talking about white, black. In those days, when Sinatra was born, he's born in 1950. You still had Irish, big separations between the Irish, the Germans, the Italians, real serious conflicts. I remember these conflicts like into the 60s. I remember guys telling me, hey, man, I was dating this girl in South Boston and, I had to be out of there before sundown because she was in the Italian part of town and I lived in the Irish part of town. I mean, you get that ass whipped. See, these kids today, they have no concept. They think they can go out and do anything they want. That's why these anarchists are out here bombing cars, spitting on cops, shooting cops. This nonsense has to stop. The anarchy has to stop. Period. Did you hear me? I didn't say period. Period. So, I just sit here, just listen to him, just tell that lie with such a straight face. Oh my God. No, the country would be a different place. Dr. King would have led us Dr. King would have led me anywhere. That nonviolence crap? No. That's why you got voted out of SNCC, John. You don't remember that. See, these white people let you, get off and, continue to claim this false valor. But dude, you got replaced by Stokely. Hello. Anyway, let's continue with this interview.
Times during the 60s, 5 times since I've been in Congress, and I'm probably going to get arrested again for something. Not today. My philosophy is very simple. When you see something that is not right, not fair, not just, you have a moral obligation to do something, to say something, to speak up and speak out.
How do we do that? How do we get this kind of courage? Because I will tell you, it freaks me out that we have found ourselves grasping up to pull ourselves back up. How do we do it? Yeah. How do we do this?
Well, before we participated in the sit-ins, before we went on the Freedom Ride, before we marched from Selma to Montgomery, we studied. We prepared ourselves as young people, as students, as adults. So someone will spit on you, pour hot water, hot coffee, hot chocolate, call you everything but a child of God. Just keep your cool. And you hold your head high.
Son of a sharecropper.
You stand with dignity, or you kneel with dignity.
But you're still kneeling.
You're not an angry person.
You cannot become angry. You cannot become bitter or hostile. Dr. King taught us never to hate. For hate is too heavy a burden to bear. Have the capacity, have the ability to forgive.
Oh, that's true. I don't disagree with that. But at the end of the day, if somebody spit on you, get in that behind. Somebody pour hot chocolate on you, pour it back on them. Then all that goes away. See, people go, oh, they got some skin in the game. Hey, man, what's that mark on your arm? Yeah, man, one of them colored boys down there poured that hot coffee on me. How'd he do that? Well, I was trying to pour it on him, but he grabbed it, poured it on me instead. I got a little burn. John Lewis. Pathetic, in my opinion. But anyway, let's continue.
which you speak. And coming from the generation, I remember Martin Luther King Day was a holiday and learning about it. And it had already been a holiday by the time I got into school, and just learning about him and his legacy, and to sit across from somebody who stood side by side with him is an incredible moment for me to just sit here and learn from you. But I should probably ask my question. I'm sorry. But this April will mark the 50th anniversary of Dr. King's assassination. What memory of Dr. King has stuck with you the most after all this time?
Well, when I first met him, the first time I met him, I wrote him a letter when I was 17. He wrote me back. I wanted to attend a little school 10 miles from my home. They didn't admit Black students. So he sent me a round-trip Greyhound bus ticket. I took the bus from the little town called Troy, about 50 miles from Montgomery. And a young lawyer ushered me into the office where he stood with his colleague, Reverend Abernathy. And he said, "Are you the boy from Troy? Are you John Lewis?" I said, "Dr. King, I am John Robert Lewis," but he still called me the boy from Troy. And when he spoke to my heart and to my soul. I love this man. He taught me how to stand up, to speak up and speak out, and not to be afraid. And I felt that when he was assassinated, that something died in America, and something died in all of us.
Yeah.
And this country had not been on the right path since.
It's been off since then. We got to get back on track.
We will. That's why we must never give up.
That's right.
Or give in or become bitter or hostile. But keep the faith and keep our eyes on the prize.
Yeah. It's all good. It's all good slogans. Keep your eyes on the prize. But what do we do today? We've gone through these marches, protests, flare-ups, and studies, and where are we? Back where we started in 1960. My solution, quick solution, would be 1, put policies in place that penalize women, period, for having more than 2 babies out of wedlock. Let the state take the babies and raise them. And state needs to do a good job. If the state didn't do a good job, people get fired. These children came up molested. People make it a capital crime. But we have too many pedophiles in the system. And we have too many homosexuals in the system. So they're all trying to give each other breaks. So, we'll just look the other way, just like the Black church. You have all these rapist ministers and elders in the Black church. We're gonna look at the other way. That's how we handle it here. That's how we handle it here. We take care of our own. Please. Don't let me get started. Don't let me get started up in here. John Lewis. Well, may he rest in peace. I'm sure he had a good heart. I just disagree with his methodology. Excuse me. Oh, man. Oh, boy. But given last week, it was 90 degrees. I had chill bumps. Whew. Boy, I tell you. What did I want to tell you this afternoon? Well, New York Times today, spike in crimes on the Upper East Side. For those of you who are not familiar with New York, that's the east side of Central Park, all the way up to 89th Street. You got a gap that starts Harlem. in there. But man, if you can't listen to these folks, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Right? You know okay. They wow. I don't know. I'm gonna do a story here, and it says Trump doesn't need most votes if what he doesn't even, and what if he doesn't even want them? It's by Jamila Brown. She's pretty good. Yeah, she's usually pretty good. Or he is, I should say, Jamil. He's usually pretty good. He says government of the minority, chosen by a minority on behalf of a minority, is not what Lincoln had in mind at Gettysburg. Who know what he had in mind at Gettysburg? I know he'd been getting his behind whipped by the Confederacy. He wanted to see something a little better outcome than what he was getting because they were dogging him. So, let's see here. I'm just thinking. But look, we'll have Liz Peek on tomorrow. We'll talk about this thing because she won't know it. I'm going to pull it up. Give it ahead of time, I think. It's called, what's this story called? Shoot. So, man, nearly, they said Trump doesn't need most votes. And what is if he doesn't even want them? The government of the minority, chosen by a minority on behalf of a minority, is what Lincoln had in mind at Gettysburg. Wow, interesting. Nearly everyone involved in reporting on, analyzing, and forecasting the upcoming presidential election agrees with Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. Donald Trump. Donald's ripping and running. He's doing a good job. That's how he won in 2016. He could, he'll do it again, win the Electoral College. Because that's what determines the race. Now, this season in Detroit, they're talking about people really trying to get Biden an opportunity. I don't see that. I don't see that at all. Because watching these guys, you can tell they're going full steam ahead. They're not giving up for anyone. Okay, my chair is starting to raise. My cousins have just run out. And I guess it's time for me to say hasta la vista, baby. Okay. I guess. Yeah, we got a few minutes here. But David Axelrod said in 2012, we're just trying to find the quickest path to 270 electoral votes. That's it. All the rest of this stuff that they talking about didn't make any sense. He was just straightforward. He was just trying to buy each company one at a time. Electoral college regrets. Okay. Boom, 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 boom. They said that this re-election effort is going to carry over into his campaign. His chief target right now is the Postal Service, whose operation, it almost goes without saying, is critical for the success of such mail-in voting. I don't think it's going to work myself. I just don't, Chicago is vote early, vote often. And people try to act like they don't remember that phrase. I've never heard that phrase before, Mr. Butler. Yeah. So anyway, you can never have enough. You can never have people clearing the way for you. That's all I can say. So I'm going to sign off this time without Dan. Dan's on his way to a golf tournament. But tell, is it not Keisha? Yeah, I haven't seen Keisha in a while either. I may just drive up there. I think that's what I'll do. Anyway, take care, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye. Better play like Gil Scott Heron and ease on out of here. That's what we need to do. Boom, 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 boom. Taylor. Ashley Taylor. Nope.
You see that black boy over there running scared, his old man in a bottle. He done quit his 9 to 5, he drank full time, and now he's living in a bottle. See that black boy over there running scared, his old man got a problem, and it's a bad one. He ain't done pawned off damn near everything. His old woman a wedding ring for bottle. And don't you think it's a crime when time after time after time people in a bottle, there's people living in the bottle. Listen to me, see that sister, sure was fine. She's finally drinking wine in the bottle. She told me, oh man, committed a crime, he's doing time, now she's hanging in a bottle. I seen her out there on the avenue all by herself, she sure need help from the bottle. I seen her, preacher man tried to help her, she cussed him out and hit him in the head with the bottle. Don't you think it's a crime? The way and time after time after time, people in the bottom. There's people showing up in the bottom. Give you another good example. You see that jet in a regal suit there, nothing damn near blown his to the bottom. He was a doctor helping young girls along. If they wasn't too far, gonna have problems. But the vendors of the dollar eagle said, what you doing, man, ain't legal. Now he's in the bottle. And now we watch him every day. He's trying to chase the prisons away from the bottom. He turned to me, he said, "Give me a hand now. Don't you think it's a crime? The way time after time, friends of mine in the bottom. There's people showing up in the bottom."
New business.